Welcome to the Period Besties Podcast with Stasha and Katie. Think about it as chatting with your best friends about all the TMI stuff you've never talked about before with two period coaches who've been helping hormones collectively for over 20 years now. I'm Stasha.
And I'm Katie, and we're pulling back the curtain on what it's like in the world of menstrual coaching. From puberty to menopause and everything in between, we're here to show you how period coaching can save the day. We'll share practical tips and information you can put to immediate use to improve your hormones and happiness.
We're removing the mystery, ending the taboo, and shining a light on just how powerful period coaching can be.
So whether you need period coaching or are considering becoming a period coach yourself, these episodes are going to help you. We'll share stories, coach live on air, and bring smart, savvy guests to share their wisdom too. Let's start today's episode.
That was such a fun episode, talking to the Puberty Doula about that whole adventure into puberty and the ages that it's happening now and the things that change. And I think that anyone who has a kid or has children in their lives, the cool aunt, whatever it is that you are, this is going to be a really helpful episode for you just on figuring out all of that stuff, because it's something that we weren't taught really growing up. And it's like we missed this whole chunk of education from puberty through all of our menstrual years through perimenopause, right? That's like the vast scope of this whole podcast. But today we're really getting into the puberty chunk of it. And like, I didn't learn much. I don't know. So this was super helpful for me.
Super helpful. I had so many flashbacks of just 80s and 90s and just blindly moving through life and not having information, and how I think that is one of the main reasons I do what I do, is because I really want to educate and reteach things that we didn't learn. Like even though I don't have teenage daughters, I want to learn so that I can educate my clients. I can really help support my friends and their daughters. So it's a great episode just of relearning things you might not, or even just having those conversations and feeling validated that it wasn't just you that didn't get this conversation as a child. As a preteen, I guess I should say. And
I'm a little panicky, right? I have an 8-year-old stepdaughter. Obviously my partner has a daughter, but like she's 8. And we're talking about how people are getting their periods younger and these kinds of things. And I'm thinking, oh Lord, why? I don't know what's happening on the other end. So, is this going to end up being something that I'm having this conversation? And I just was like, oh gosh, we're really close to that age right now in this house. Whew, yeah, it's definitely a good topic of conversation.
Definitely. So buckle up. And it's also not scary. It doesn't have to be a scary conversation. I think it's just the more that you talk about it, the more natural it is, the more that you are open to having these conversations, the more that your daughter is going to feel heard and seen, and will open up the dialogue as well. So enjoy. If you have questions, let us know. Now here's our episode for the day.
Welcome to Period Besties Podcast. We are here today with Elvira, who is going to be talking to us about puberty and calls herself the Puberty Doula as well. And we're going to be like diving into all this stuff. And I think it's such a fascinating topic. A lot of us are moms. A lot of us have this coming up in our kids, in our friend groups, all these kinds of things. Katie and I talk about how we often have our friends calling us and are like, okay, so my daughter is this age. What do I need to know now? I think it's just such a great episode to really dive into all of this so that you can know it for yourself, for your family, for your friends, for your kids, whatever it is coming up. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Stasha.
I'm stoked. So why don't you kick us off and tell us, who you are? What is it that you do?
So like you said, I'm Elvira de Bridget, and I am a mother of 3. My oldest is a girl, and she's like 30 now, and I have 2 boys. My youngest is 16. And for the last many years, since my daughter was in kindergarten, I've been involved in the homeschool world. But in the last 10 years, I've really made a career of it as a public school coach for homeschool families. And before that, I'll just say my background was really specializing in Waldorf education. And then as I worked more and more with families, with homeschooling their kids, I really saw how at the early tween years, even before puberty really hits, there can be these struggles and homeschooling can get more difficult. And so that's what started to lead me into all this research, plus my own experience with perimenopause, which we'll get into in a little bit. So that's a little bit about me.
I love it. All right, so let's just jump right in. Having teenagers, I don't have them yet, but I know it's challenging. I have a lot of friends that have teenagers. And so that's challenging in itself. And then going through our hormonal changes while they're going through their hormonal changes. Let's talk about this. Like, how can we support literally both the opposite ends of puberty, the first puberty and then the second puberty?
Yeah, it's amazing. And especially more and more these days, I think, I don't know, people are still having kids at different ages in their lifespan, but I think it's very common that women are going through perimenopause as their daughters are going through their first menarche. What I came to realize after many years of research is that there's a lot of brain changes going on for both of those processes. And so, yes, it's hormones, but yes, it's also these amazing brain changes that are happening.
How do you work with and support the opposite? Because I just know when I was a teenager, way back in the day, because I'm now going through perimenopause, like with hormones turning on, right? There's a lot more emotions and moods. And then when your mom, like my mom was going through perimenopause when I was a teenager, and she was also having mood swings, PMS. She was having very irregular, heavy periods. So I wish I had this information then, because we could have supported each other now knowing that we were going through similar things. So how can we, like, with this knowledge, what do we need to know? And so that we can actually like support both the mother and the daughter.
Yeah. From my experience, I really didn't know that much about my own hormone cycle until I really started getting into perimenopause and problems started arising. I think that's pretty common. And whether or not you feel like you know a lot about your monthly hormonal cycle or not, it's such a good time for women to really pay attention, delve in, and often we're needing to make some changes during perimenopause. And so that's also such a great time if it happens there's someone else in your family who's just going and getting into puberty and having their first cycles, their first periods, to help each other, like education wise, like just making it something you could do together, like tracking your cycle and eating better for your hormones. Those kind of things we can do together. I wish that I had more of that and done more of that with my daughter. I was just struggling on my own, or felt like I was. And yeah, just trying to help her a little bit as best I could. So those are a couple of examples, definitely, like tracking our cycles, just learning what are good eating and exercising routines for the cycle, because it can change throughout the month, as you two know.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned tracking together. One of my good friends, Meredith, hi Meredith, her oldest, they started tracking together. So they were using the mandala that I have, and symptoms and mood and energy levels and those kinds of things. And she wasn't having her oldest track like cervical mucus or anything, because that wasn't a thing yet. It was like replacing the place where we would normally track libido and saying like family caregiving. And did you do something show love within the family for the day or whatever? But they modified it so that it was useful for her oldest, who wasn't yet menstruating. But because they were tracking it and they were using the moon cycle, for as their like monthly day one, I would get messages from her oldest saying, oh my God, I definitely felt a shift in my moods. I feel like I'm going into luteal, like I'm feeling tired and cranky now. So for 2 years before the first period, they were really clear and could see monthly shifts in mood and energy levels. And then in the year before, it got to just be bigger and a little bit more obvious, but still, had they not been tracking, wouldn't have been something that they'd noticed.
Yes.
So they were tracking it, they noticed it, and then they were able to really see it coming. And then that first period was absolutely no surprise. For 6 months, I was getting messages. It was like, yo, Aunt Stasha, I think I'm going to get my period soon. And I was like, I can't wait. I'm ready. But it was so cool. And then Meredith was totally prepared for her oldest to get their first period, and they were prepared for their first period. And it was really like such a lovely introduction, because it wasn't this, oh my God, I'm dying, what's happening to me moment. It was fully prepared. And not only that, but they had an idea of even when, because they were able to see that decline in energy and that change in mood and how it was very cyclical, and it was becoming more and more cyclical as that year went on. So that's just one real life example. But as a mom, wouldn't that be so much better to know and understand and be able to feel like have that level of conversation in the house and that vocabulary fluency? I just think that's such a great suggestion.
Yes, definitely. I love that. And I have recommended that to parents too, that you don't have to wait until your daughter starts her first period, that you can use the moon to just track as something to kind of keep a pace with.
Yeah. On that topic, what are some of those signs that we should be looking for that we're moving into puberty? And I know that there are signs that come before having your period. So if you don't mind, would you walk us through what are some of those initial signs of puberty? And then
and there can be this thing called adenarche, which can happen even before puberty, which is, your adrenal glands just have this little wake up thing, and it can happen like at 7 or 8 years old, and you'll just notice like similar signs but less intense. So you might notice a little bit of body odor, not really, but like some sweating and like a little bit of something. I was going to say like a pimple, but it might just be like one or some kind of skin change. And then, the moodiness could also be a sign. So often there's this little period and then it goes away, and then it will just a couple of years later, even it might just come even more stronger, those signs. But also for a girl, like maybe she should gain a little weight and height at the same time. And I was fascinated to find out that you can't really have your period unless you have, 20% body fat. So that's a good thing. You don't want to be trying to keep your young girls on a strict diet or anything. And I think those are the main signs, that definitely that growth spurt.
Have you noticed in your work, I was reading an article the other day about, and this article comes out every year, about how girls are getting their periods younger and younger. And I think I should have written this down, but I think it was like 11 now is the average age that they were saying. Have you noticed that in your work as well too? Because then it's like you're walking backwards. You have to start looking for signs at age 9? That seems so young.
Yeah, or even before that, because some girls are getting their periods even at 8 and 9. So,
so how do you know the difference if you're a parent and you have a daughter and maybe they've always been a little bit moody?
One of the signs that I forgot to mention is like budding breasts and breast tenderness. Yeah, that's another thing. So that could be something that could start to happen at 8, and you might be like, "Whoa, it seems a little early." But if it is happening, don't deny it. And I've heard conflicting things about, because there just hasn't been good science for anything women related, but especially for like girls having their first period, like when does that happen? So some people will say, oh yeah, my grandmother got it when she was 9. So it did happen before, but maybe it's happening more and more now. And yeah, it might be related to our diets or things in the environment.
Yeah. And or they're just finally doing studies.
No kidding.
Like it could have always been this.
Yes. But yeah, what you were asking, like how can you tell then? Like sometimes it could really sneak up on us, but I feel like even those younger girls, like there will be signs. It's not like their body just didn't mature and then all of a sudden they had a period.
Yeah.
There is some correlation between the age. So we talk about this in perimenopause as well. Like what age did your mom get her period? You know, if she was younger, it's likely that you may be younger. In perimenopause, what age did your mom go through perimenopause? And if she was younger, it may be younger or older or whatever. So there is a little correlation too. Though to be fair, a lot of moms are like, I don't remember when I got my first period. So I know when they'd ask my mom that, and she was like, I don't know.
Save.
Yeah, but that definitely seems that correlation there can also be a little bit of a heads up anyway, where it's like if you were younger or if you were older, it might skew in one direction or the other. So that can also help with that. Just especially if you were younger, start paying attention earlier situation, maybe have some conversations earlier than you thought you might have to have some conversations.
What's your suggestion with that? Like in terms of conversations, and is it more maturity level? Is it more age related? Like when do you suggest to parents that start having open conversations? I do with my boys already. I can't remember the last time I was in the bathroom by myself. So when I have my period, like they know I have my period. Like it's I tell them what's up, like open conversation. I know not everyone is like that. But I'm curious, like, how do you know when to start having these conversations?
Yeah, there's so many different kinds of conversations that we can have. So definitely, yeah, when they're toddlers and they're following us into the bathroom, it's just, oh yeah, mommy's bleeding again for a little while. And it's not like other blood. It's not a cut. It doesn't hurt per se. And then it's just, yeah, can keep going from there. So definitely there's not like an age when you should start talking about it, but it's just that how are those like age appropriate conversations going to change? Yeah, I have a whole bunch of recommendations. Like I have a course that I developed called Empowered Puberty Preparation for Parents. And just goes into a lot of different ways that we can talk about it and just trying. I also have this PDF that's available on my website that's positive period messages for first periods especially, but it's good anytime really. But I think that most importantly, it is to try to undo some of the misconceptions and the negativity that we've all kind of carried around about our bodies and this change in our bodies, and try to make it an exciting adventure. And it's not always going to be all rosy, but it's like something to really be respectful of and in awe of. So there's so many different ways to do that. Like one suggestion that I have for parents is this is especially for girls, although you could do it for boys too, like looking at different ways in nature that there's this beauty of flowers blossoming, especially is one example I love to use, especially flowers that actually look like yonis. And like just pointing that out. And my mom used to do that. I thought it was weird. But she would be pointing out like phallic symbols and then yoni images and things like that. And now I just see it as, yeah, that can be a really empowering thing to say, look how it shows up in nature in a beautiful way.
I love that. It's more organic, just natural conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, and then there is the whole, probably by 8 or 9 years old or earlier if you think it's needed, to really start. And you can have like great books to share, but like really start talking more about the details. Like this is how your body's going to change, and you'll these changes are also happening inside where we can't see, like in your brain and the pituitary gland. And you don't have to get like super scientific about it, but it's good to just, yeah, have those discussions and do like coloring pages on the reproductive system. So I definitely, coming from my Waldorf background, I think I've just said it in my answers. I like start with the younger ones, like it's more like storytelling. There's some amazing myths from native tribes about menstruation that's couched in there in the myth. And then there's just, like I said, having that awe and reverence for it. And then there's a time where they're getting a little older, you get a little more scientific about it. And from there, just keep having the conversations.
Yeah. Preparation, laying that groundwork from the very beginning so that it's not like a sprung on you moment halfway through.
Yeah. I just got a video in 5th grade. Like they put all the girls in one room and we watched a video. Her name was Katie. She got her first period. It was like hiding in the background. And then when I got my period, it was like a 2-minute conversation. So I love that we are talking today about just building that foundation and starting young. So it's not like a shock to, I saw my mom, I would walk in the bathroom, but there was just never this like conversation that we had. And I think it's just this beautiful thing where we can just have a conversation. It's not just such a big deal when it does happen. It's just nature, and this is what's happening to your body.
Yeah. And like we started out talking about moms who are going through perimenopause, that's a great time to have those conversations about what's going on with you, and the more you're learning about it, then, because it is amazing how estrogen in the brain really affects so much. And there's just so many conversations that you can have around that.
Yeah, it does have such a huge influence on the brain development and changes. And it's for all of our recorded history, I guess I should say, we've just been like, it's just making babies and there's no other collaboration in your body. It's just for making babies and that's it. And then it turns out it's literally everything.
Yes.
No, as it turns out, that is not how that works. But yeah, it's a lot. And then especially when you're in that turmoil. So one of the questions that I have is, how do you navigate those massive mood swings with your teen? And let's just pretend you're not in the middle of massive mood swings yourself to start with. But
yeah, that's what comes to mind when I think about like perimenopause and teens in the house. Because there's been research showing that teens will misinterpret facial signs because their amygdala is growing like 3 times in size during adolescence. So the preteen is going through a lot more emotional intensity. And I love someone, I forget who was talking about trying to keep your brow as a mom or a parent like very smooth. That's the ticket, she was saying, because if you crinkle your brow, the teen is just going to interpret that you're angry or whatever, and you might just be like questioning, oh, don't do that.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
I had no idea. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where it can be difficult if you're, as a mom, going through a lot of emotional swings and you're not going to be able to regulate yourself as easily, and the teen will pick up on that, and it could just be a whole walking, ticking time bomb. If you're aware of it, then hopefully you can take better care of yourself so you're not just like going through as many wild mood swings, or you're saying, oh, I need a timeout because I love what Deanna, I forget her last name. Anyway, she does a lot of red tent circle work. Lamb, yeah. And I remember hearing her talk once about her early experiences where she was just cranky and would get upset with her husband a lot when she was about to have her period. And then she realized if she just took that time as sacred time in her room then there was no one there to get upset with because she was just spending some time by herself. That's always a good tip.
So it's modeling that emotional regulation. It's modeling the behavior of going, look, I'm feeling really emotional right now. I'm going to take an emotional regulation moment to myself.
Exactly.
And when you're feeling emotionally hijacked, you can also go take a moment to yourself. So it's in part modeling that behavior for your emotional teen.
Yeah, and that's why I think it's so vital for our mental health that we understand our monthly cycles, because I know there were times in my life where I thought that there was, and there might have been some issue that was upsetting, but like I blew it out of proportion. And then I didn't realize that it was part of just my hormones dropping. And it's not like that's an excuse. It's a good time to evaluate what's not working in your life. But to get all heated up about it in the moment and start yelling at people, like that's not what you want to do right then.
Yeah, there was some
Or even just worrying about it, even not blowing up about it, but internalizing it and being anxious and worried. Either way, it's just not healthy. So it's just helped me so much to realize, this is probably one of those times I need to go look at my cycle tracker and then rethink, like, what am I doing today? It's probably one of those days where I need to cross some things off my calendar.
Yeah, my mom was going through menopause when I was going through puberty. And then we joked that my dad went golfing. So mom went through menopause, I went through puberty, dad went golfing. In the end, it worked out all right. I love my mom. We hang out. We're cool now. So don't panic too much, listeners out there.
Yes, don't panic. Yeah, I just remember getting sent to my room a lot because I just couldn't hold back. I just had to have the last word all the time. Which teenagers, that they're seeking authority in their own right, but I definitely can understand my mom so much better now that I'm on the other side of it all.
Oh, I remember thinking very clearly, I cannot believe these words are coming out of my mouth right now. What is wrong with me? What is happening right now? Like I very much had this other persona going, oh my God, what is wrong with you? You were just completely hijacked. And then the other part of me was like, I don't know what to tell you, but this is what's happening right now.
So true.
Yeah, it was a lot. But our parents didn't have emotional regulation. That wasn't even a freaking word. You would never put those two words together in our day. So to be able to be that first generation that has those words and then the tools to do that and to model that behavior that's a huge part of breaking those cycles.
Yeah, that's why I'm so excited about this work, is to think about the ramifications of it. We break those cycles. What's next? So there's so much empowerment with, mothers and daughters having better relationships. And then, being able to bring also that awareness into schools and workplaces. And
absolutely. So when you're working with people, are you working with parents and children, or is it one or the other?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I've done all kinds of things. I've done some really amazing mother-daughter circles where we get together and it's a play shop. Like there will be some little like interactive lesson where I'm talking about puberty changes or hormonal monthly cycle changes. And then we'll have some sort of activities and ceremony. And so those are really fun ways to do it together. And then I offer coaching if moms and daughters feel like they want some support with talking through things. I've done a lot of, just coaching and classes just for parents. And then I've done some just girls circles also, where I'll have like a group of girls, and I'm looking forward to doing more of that now in the future.
I love that. Do you find that when you are working, because you're like a mediator between the teenager and the mom in a way, you're coaching, that's how I visualize it would work with my mom. Do you feel like they you hear after, oh, I never knew my daughter was feeling this way. She really opened up to me. Like, do you feel like these circles that you're creating and giving that space, or do you find that it's more like when it's the girl circle and that's when they're really opening up? I'm curious the dynamic there.
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely feel like there's a different kind of opening up when the parents aren't there, for sure. But then there's also a sweetness that can happen when it is the mother and daughter, and there's like a lot of times this wonderful appreciation on both sides. And just, I guess I'm trying to think like what you said, if parents say, oh, I didn't know that my daughter was feeling that way. Sometimes that can come up, but more it's, oh, I didn't know just certain facts and things to look out for. And
Yeah, I've done a few circles with moms and daughters, and the daughters didn't really want to say or speak up so much. And so a lot of times it ended up being like the mom's going, can I ask you a question about perimenopause or menopause while we're here? And then the next day I would get emails that were like, okay, so we went home and then I got some questions and I would love to know what to say. It was those first few that made me realize that you can do that. And then I just needed to put something in there that was like, and then we'll have a follow-up email afterwards or something. Like I needed to build it into the price point, essentially, that there would be follow-up, or that let's do something with just the girls, no parents first, and then bring the parents in. So for me, I really realized I needed to juggle it around, because having everybody in the room for an hour didn't really bring the honesty, or it wasn't enough to drop the self-consciousness in the moment either. And then I remember as a teenager, you feel like you're on stage and everyone's staring at you all the time. Yeah.
And that's when you want to tell your friends, not your mom. Like you'll tell your friends everything, and then eventually your mom.
Yeah. That's why I really like to work with girls that are not quite teens yet. They're still in that really early preteen. They're still wanting to talk to their mom a little bit. I try to really get that across to parents because it's so hard. There's that sweet time often between ages 6, 7, 8, where like everything seems to be going great, and you can't imagine that your sweetheart is going to turn into a teenager and be giving you a hard time. And I try to tell parents, now's a good time to be prepared and start having these conversations. And and then I feel like teens can get a bad rap in our society. Yeah, someone else I was talking to, she said, like when you're pregnant, people are like, oh, that's so exciting, and congratulations. And then when your daughter is turning into a teen, people are not usually like saying, oh, yay, congratulations. They're usually like, oh, now you have a teenager at home. How's that going?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's so true. I hear that all the time.
Yeah. If we can just try to change it around a little bit to, wow, there's so much amazing things that their body is going through, and all that like brain pruning and development. It's just amazing. And I try to give my son a lot of slack in that way. And I tell him sometimes, you're going through a lot of changes, and that might be affecting the decision that you're making right now.
Yeah.
Things like that. Yeah.
So what is one of your absolute favorite things about doing this work in the menstrual education field?
Yeah, I love educating people on some of the things about menstruation and hormone cycles that I didn't know before, and just seeing this like light up of interest of, oh, wow, this really is fascinating. It's not just gross and annoying. Yeah.
I love those light bulb moments. I live for those light bulb moments. That like, oh, that explains it moment is just like the balm to my soul.
Yeah. So great. Curious, because you have 3 children, have a business, you were also teaching, you retired today. How do you support yourself and take care of your health? Like, what are some of your non-negotiables when it comes to your health so that your hormones feel all right?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I definitely have learned to have some protein like in the first hour of waking up. That's a non-negotiable. So for me, it's either a really good yogurt or an egg. And I'm really big on nuts and things too. So yeah, eating healthy in general, really important for me. And sleep, I'm pretty good about getting good amount of sleep. Living in Hawaii, it's helpful because the sun sets pretty much, it fluctuates, I think, like an hour and a half through the year or something. So we're always going to sleep early around here. But yeah, when I think I'm really close to being on the other side of menopause. But there were many years there through my 40s where I had to really have days where I was just in bed with the migraine or the starting migraine. And so I just had to learn how to make that a thing in my life. And sometimes it was really annoying, but it became gradually like a self-care thing where I was like, oh, it's such a good thing that I'm just going to go and today is going to be a rest day. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done it. It's just in our society, there's that go. And even it's still a challenge for me. Even when I'm having a rest day, I'm often like feeling like I got to do something, listen to podcasts or whatever it is. But yeah, I feel like that was a really good thing to be able to model to my girl too. That yeah, I'm just working from bed today, and that's okay.
Yeah. I literally just had a conversation yesterday with a friend who was like, how do I rest without feeling like I should be doing something and therefore not actually resting because I'm just sitting there yelling at myself in my head instead of resting?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like all of us have that conversation.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's an endless one. And there's really no true answer. There's all sorts of techniques and you try them all until you find one that helps essentially. But at the end of the day, it's really just reminding yourself that you have to rest. It's not a bad thing. And you hear that little voice come up in your head that says, you know what you should be doing right now. And then you go, no, quiet you. I need to rest. And that's okay. It's like, you've been programmed your whole life. You're not going to deprogram yourself in a day or a year or a couple of years. I've been doing this for over a decade and I still have those days where I'm like, I need to rest. And my brain's going, no, but what you really need to be doing is X, Y, Z. And it's just a never ending thing.
Yeah. It's a constant practice of giving yourself permission to rest.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on this topic of puberty and these kinds of things, do you remember your first period?
I remember, yeah, little bits about it.
Yeah.
I remember being excited for it because I felt like I was ready. I was 13 and I feel like it was starting to be a thing that other kids in my class were having. Yeah, I just remember being like excited and telling my mom, I got my period. I think I got my period. And then she was showing me how to use the pads. And one thing I really remember is that she really showed me how to like wrap up the pad in toilet paper and be discreet about it when you throw it away, which is, I could see where that's helpful. But also later I thought, but that's interesting. It was definitely the subtle message there. Hide that you're having your period.
Yeah, I do remember that as well, figuring out how to make this as small and quiet and silent and unnoticeable as humanly possible.
Yeah, there wasn't much that was talked about after that, really. Yeah, it's just okay. Now
here you go.
I think my mom had a hysterectomy right around the same time. So I think there was also some of that energy, like, I'm not going to be needing these pads anymore. Yeah, there was for me a lot of like independence, or maybe a little too early, but yeah, that's like growing up in the 80s kind of thing, right?
Yeah, same. That's what I've been like, here you go. It's like, all right, here's our 2-minute conversation. You should be good for the rest of the time until you don't have a period anymore. Oh, on that note, since we've talked about all these changes that have happened in the scope of period coaching, starting in the 80s with us, right? Where do you see the future of period coaching and the future of some of the work that you're doing?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, what would I like to envision? I would love it if every community had like a place, whether it be like a moon lodge, a red tent, or just a community center where people can go and talk about this and have resources around the room. And so mothers can feel like, oh, let's go here and explore, just like they would going to, I don't know, the library or the kids museum or something like that.
I'd love that.
Yeah, me too. That's beautiful. Like bringing the community back to it.
Yeah, I really have this vision of creating a moon lodge here on our farm and having it be somehow, I haven't figured out the details, but somehow open to like members so people could come when they want to. I had that for a little while in Mount Shasta, where there was a place that this woman had on this very rural, she had the little yurt, and yeah, it was a beautiful place. And she said, yeah, women can just come here when they need a day off. And
When I was in Australia, there was literally a red tent out in the bush, and there was a sign that had the rules of the tent, like A, no men allowed, B, clean up after yourself. So there was like, but it was free to anyone to use at any time. And it was big, it had like a huge pole in the middle and carpets on the inside, but it was quite literally a giant red tent just tucked into the bush out in the outback. And it was incredible to go there and be in that space. I just think this is a community structure. Anyone and everyone can use this as needed. And it was just heartening to see out there, like something actually being built and done and put together. It was beautiful.
wow, that's a great vision. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I love it. So before we wrap up, we have a lightning round of questions to ask you. But before we hit that, tell us where people can find you on the interwebs and your free gift.
Yeah. So as I was saying, I'm just developing a new website under teenbodymindcoach.com. And you could also find me on Instagram at Puberty Doula. And yeah, I have on my website, which you'll be directed to from the new one. I have a few free gifts. One is this connected communication guide, which really focuses on the positive psychology science of identifying our character strengths and using that like strength spotting as parenting tip to develop a really good, strong relationship. Because I often find parents first come to me because there's difficulties with communication. So that's like a good starting point. And then, like I mentioned, I also have a PDF about positive period messaging.
We all need that. Thank you. Okay, so now for the fun, to ending with the more fun, I guess I should say, we're going to do a rapid lightning round. So go with your gut, first instinct, don't overthink it. Fun questions.
Okay.
So we're going to start with, what is your biggest craving?
Almonds.
All right. And I'm going to imagine. So the next question is, what do you eat to satisfy your craving? I'm going to imagine it's almonds.
Yeah. I could have said nuts in general. And then, yeah.
Perfect.
What's your favorite way to move?
Dancing.
Nice.
What's the number one self-care go-to when you're just super stressed out?
Taking some deep breaths.
What music do you listen to when you're working?
I don't know, like instrumental, hodgepodge. I don't know.
Yeah. What's your favorite country or place that you've visited?
Wow. My mind's going blank. You said first thing on my mind, Hawaii. That's why I moved here.
Makes a lot of sense. It's so beautiful there.
Gorgeous.
Your favorite holiday?
Probably Easter,
Mm.
even though I'm Jewish.
Is there any food that you hate?
Yeah, not really. I don't know. Not hate. I was gonna say like oysters, but I've had a few that were good.
You're like, I'll try anything. Pumpkin spice, yay or nay?
Yes, I love pumpkin spice.
Do you cook?
Sometimes
Your favorite place to work?
at a coffee shop but I don't do it very often.
What's your ideal Friday night?
Going to a local place and seeing some local music. Yeah, getting some good food and just hanging out for a little while.
Yeah, that sounds lovely to me. And you've survived the lightning round, so well done.
Yay!
Thank you so much for being here with us today. I feel like we got some good insights, some good suggestions, and some ideas of where to get started if we haven't started yet with the kids, or at least to be a resource for our friends with kids. So thank you so much for being here with us today. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And we can't wait to see everybody on the next podcast. Thanks to everyone for listening, and bye for now.
Besties, we have a really fun giveaway coming up for you. You can win the book Metabolism Repair for Women, Sweetening the Pill, Bloody Brilliant Business, my hormone recipe book, plus Thrive Market, a free box of goodies, a membership for an entire year, and a spot in our fall perimenopause workshop. You don't want to miss this.
It's so good. I mean, thank you. Big shout out to Laura Bryden for donating, Thrive Market, Holly Griggs Spall. So excited to have everyone who donated to this giveaway. So the rules for the giveaway are that you're going to have to go to Instagram. You have to be following Katie and I both. So go to Katie Bresack and at Stasha Washburn for our Instagrams. And look for a post in early May. Depending on when you're listening to this, you might have to scroll back a little bit, and it will have giveaway on the very first photo, and then we'll have some photos of the goodies that you'll be winning. You're going to want to comment on that post, and when you tag friends, each tag is an entry. So follow along and comment on the post, you get an entry. Each tag of a friend after that gives you an extra entry to win. And then register for the upcoming book launch party for my book, Bloody Brilliant Business, and we'll be announcing the winner at the book launch party. So you're going to want to register for the book launch party. All the details will be on Instagram under that post as well. So head over to Instagram, check out either one of us to find the post, and then pop your information on there.
A big shout out and thank you to our sponsors for today's episode, Period Coaching School and Katie Bresack Wellness.
Thanks to you, our favorite bestie, for listening to the Period Besties Podcast, where no topic is TMI. And of course, share this episode with your besties.
Remember to leave us a 5-star review, nothing less than the best for us besties, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can follow us on Instagram at Stasha Washburn and at Katie Bresack, or email us at periodbestiespodcast@gmail.com.
Check out more about us at katiebresack.com and periodcoachingschool.com. And of course, check the show notes for free goodies and extras that support this episode.
We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye for now, besties.